men from Lough and Rush in those days had to bring with them a donkey's breakfast.
Right, yeah.
Every individual ship you went to,
Yeah,
you had to
yeah.
carry a donkey's breakfast with you.
Now, someone may ask you what a donkey's breakfast is. Now, when I got to Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, there in Halifax, it's the only place in North America where the wild Scottish heather grows. And they say that the seed came from mattresses shook out by British sailors many years ago.
Yeah.
Your donkey's breakfast.
That's right. Yeah,
There you
that's
know.
right.
Yeah. So
That is
one
right.
lady,
Austin there with a bit of background. How
they,
about
they
that?
have it there. So one lady asked me if we still brought a donkey's breakfast with us to sea. Not at all. It was like they're bringing electric blankets and duvets with them now.
Jeez, I know when I went in the Manchester Lodge, you had to bring your donkey's breakfast.
Did you?
with Yeah, the first trip I made in the Manchester Regiment was the first one I
A
joined.
donkey's breakfast.
And the first thing the bosun said to me, have your donkey's breakfast.
Yeah.
Jesus, I haven't. Says, I am not in one of Kelly's of fucking Belfast. No.
And you know what I was
And
saying?
Kelly's of Belfast, you had to carry her under your arm.
Yeah.
I was just saying to Willie there, reading a book about ships and that were lost at sea with all hands.
Yeah.
And where they had no information, where a ship just went. And
Yes.
then they had to have an inquiry. And I was very interested to know the kind of reasons why ships went. Some of them actually were the loading and the trim of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
God, yeah.
Well,
As an engineer, now you were an engineer.
I was in, yes, and what you ask is about ships being lost. Ship owners were ruthless people, and in years gone by, they overloaded their ships. They undermanned them, and very little repairs.
Right.
And they didn't care if the ship was lost, and they cared less if the ship was lost plus the crew,
Yeah.
because they got their insurance.
Insurance.
And as a result, a man called Samuel Plimsoll, who became a minister in the British Parliament, he brought out an act which brought in what was called then the load line, where no ship could load over this stamped registered on the side of the ship. And it became known as the Plimsoll line, and that done away with that. So that's why a lot of ships foundered in those days. Also, another thing that can happen to a ship, and has happened, is that ice. When you're going across the North Atlantic, the water coming over builds up. It freezes before it hits the ship. The
freezes
spray.
up on all the stays.
Yeah.
And the stays gets that thick.
Yeah.
It'll be as thick as your body with ice.
Yeah.
And the ship, she rolls, she lifts very heavy.
Yeah, and you have a chunk of
And instead of your mast being, put your arms around it, you
Around
want
it.
to
twice that.
twice that to go around it.
Yeah.
That's solid ice.
Yeah.
And that runs anything to 100 feet in the air. Could do.
Another thing was that radio, the radio was in around 1917 or something at the time of the Titanic,
17, 18.
and they only kept day watch.
But that's all.
There was no such thing as they have now, where an SOS would trip off an emergency.
Yeah.
So a ship could, even if she was sending out a message,
Yeah.
no one would be listening
No one
because they were off duty. But now you have a mechanism where an SOS anywhere in the world
Anywhere,
will
yeah.
set it off. A bell rings in the wireless operator's cabin, and also up on the bridge, and then he goes up and he says, you say, he opens the key and he listens in. And it's more modern now. In those days, at the time of the Titanic, there was a ship called the California only anchored, not anchored, I say, there's no, she was lying to.
Yeah.
And the wireless operator was off duty,
Yeah.
and the Titanic was sending out messages, but there was no one to listen to it,
Not at
and that was the result. Now we have it 24 hours.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it.
Have you had any experience yourself in your sailing days of near calamity, or times when you were very worried? Because okay, you were in the lower decks, so I mean, was it not like not the best place to be if things are looking.
No, when you're on a ship, to you it's your home,
Well, you're there.
and it's to you it's solid ground. Like
Yeah.
you know,
That's the way
and
you feel about it when you get used
yeah,
to it.
you get used to that.
Get
Now,
used to the motion. That it's just a
yeah,
solid
and
ground.
it's your home and it's your place of work. And as long as the engines keep going,
You're happy.
you can have a nice hot meal,
Yeah.
and you can get a sleep. You're happy,
Yeah.
and
but when that
it
engine
doesn't worry.
stops, every fella jumps.
Yeah, everyone jumps.
Especially at sea. Every fella.
Yeah,
Doesn't
everyone
matter who he
jumps,
is, he jumps.
Just jumps. Yeah,
Because he knows there's something
Yeah.
radically wrong.
yeah,
Especially if the weather's bad. My God.
yeah.
That's the danger.
Like Willie, sorry, can you-
Yeah.
like when I retired, and I was going over to Cherbourg.
Cherbourg,
There was a group that was going over on a mini cruise
Yeah.
to Cherbourg on the Irish Continental Line.
Yeah.
And about 5 in the morning, we're all asleep, you know.
Yeah.
And I heard a bang, and I jumped out of the bunk. I knew there was something wrong. But it was none of my business.
No. It
But
wasn't.
as
As
a
a seaman and an engineer.
yeah, you had it.
Yeah,
And it
jump.
turned out she was after breaking 2 pistons in
Yeah,
one of
true,
her
true.
engines, you know.
True.
But it, you know, even the present day, if I'm going to the States and I'm flying, I'm listening to the old engine going up and
The
down,
sound
you
of
know.
that engine is
So
great.
you can't get away from it, you know.
Yeah.
It's
But
the
isn't it
sound of
funny?
music that breaks a note.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's strange to say, though, you get that used to the engine running,
Yeah.
and no matter what noise the engine is
Yeah.
making, you
Yeah.
can't hear it. Or
Yeah.
you know it's
No,
there,
it's a
you know it's
hum.
running. But the minute that
Yeah.
stops, you'll
Yeah.
jump.
When the beat
When the
changes,
beat changes, you'll
yeah,
stop.
you'll jump. Yeah,
immediately,
yeah.
even at
Yeah.
sea.
Yeah.
I often, oh, Jesus, I tell you, I was on some of them Irish ships when they slowed down. I was on that deck like a light.
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm not going to be trapped down here.
yeah. Well, you of course you were
But I was
talking about during
well,
the
I tell
war,
you,
Willie.
the Irish plane,
Yeah,
not the Irish plane, the Irish pine,
the Irish pine.
the old Irish pine.
Yeah.
I got a job on the old Irish pine. I don't know what's in that now. I just forget Austin, though I went through the whole lot of it.
She's in it.
The old
Yes,
Irish
yeah,
pine, yes, I think
yeah,
she is in it.
Yeah.
But I joined her in Dublin. She was the first the old Irish Rose. I'd done 3 trips on the old Irish Rose.
Yes.
But she wasn't too bad, though she was an older ship.
Yeah.
But when I got this job on the Irish pine, Gravy Leonard. You
Remember Gravy? Yeah. Yeah.
Gravy was the bosun.
Yeah.
And one Sunday I was down in the Harbour Bar. Well, it was Grimley's pub at that time, not the Harbour Bar, I don't think. But anyway, Gravy said to me, Willie, he said, will you take a job, he said, on the Irish Pine? He said, you'd rather been on the Rose, weren't you? I said, yes. I said, I was on the Rose, all right, done 3 trips now. He said that the Irish Pine is a bigger boat. He says, you're a finer boat. No, the Irish Elm, I'm wrong now, I'm telling you that. It's the Irish Elm I was
Elm
on.
was on,
The Pine is
yeah.
on me mind now,
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. See, that was
I might have been reading about the Pine again
Yeah.
before up and down, and it's
yeah.
there, and I
That
can't
was
get
the
away
old
from it.
pine
The
was the
old
pine 1.
Yeah. And then the new
yeah.
Pine, I was reading about the new
Yeah.
Pine.
Well, the pine 1 was torpedoed.
She was torpedoed. She
Yeah.
was lost at all hands.
Yeah. Well, do you see, a lot of the trouble with those ships, Willie, that they got during the war, and especially the Irish Pine, she was an American-built ship.
That's right,
Yeah.
yes.
Now, another drawback on those ships were that when they were taken over by Irish shipping, we had no wireless operators.
That's right.
And most of the wireless operators were either English or they had
Yeah.
been on English ships.
That's right.
And a lot of them, I believe, were reporting the position of U-boats.
I know.
And
That's the bloody
this is why the Irish Pine,
The Irish Pine was
got-
lost.
she was lost
She
with
was lost,
a
yeah.
crew of 33,
Yeah.
just disappeared.
Just disappeared like that.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
So they hadn't even time to send out a
Oh, they
signal,
never
you
had a
know.
chance.
Just to, yeah.
Never got a chance.
Now, while we're on the Irish Pine, Willie, I sailed with a chap who was on the Irish Oak.
Yeah.
And they were coming across, and he was on duty. He was the port engineer.
Yeah.
And they got the telegraph rang to stop.
Yeah.
And you know the way when you're down below, you're wondering what's going on
Yeah, what's going
upstairs, up top.
Natural, yeah, up and
So
top.
we sent the greaser up,
Yeah.
and he never came back.
Oh, God.
So the fireman went up to have a look.
Yeah.
And he never come back.
I was trying to be careful, you know. I wasn't waiting for
But
a
things
real-
were getting bad. Now this is very true.
Oh, I don't know. I believe it.
Tony
I know it.
Mahoney was the fourth engineer. He lived in Baldial. And he sailed with me afterwards. So he got a bit worried. And he went up. And when he went up and looked out, the two lifeboats were rowing away from the ship.
Yeah.
They hadn't informed them in the engine room. And offside was
It was a big sub.
a sub. And they came back and took him off, rowed away off, and
Yeah.
two torpedoes through her. And down she went. So, like,
Okay,
that's a true story.
Just goes to show you.
Yeah.
But some of them never got that opportunity.
Oh, some of them never.
No, never
But
got it.
most of those ships, Irish ships, that was sunk during the war were ex-American ships.
Yeah.
And this is why they were registered eventually.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, the name is always there, registration, you know.
Yeah, but
So, but there were rust buckets, really.
Oh,
Some of the 40.
Yeah, sure they were.
Yeah.
But so that the Irish Elm now, as I say, when I went on her, she looked grand. Look, she was after being painted, and she was after supposed to be in Rushbrook, you see.
Yes.
And they took her to Dublin, and we loaded. I remember they loaded Guinness in her, and they loaded whiskey in her, and we had about 25 allowance in between deck in a big, a special wooden structure with net wire around it.
Yes, yeah.
And we brought a fellow with us. I don't know what he was, who he was, but he wasn't a
Seaman.
a merchant seaman.
No,
He was there.
he was to look
He was
after
looking
the dogs.
feeding the
Yes,
dogs and
yeah.
drinking the dogs. And that, you know, that was just, that was
And
his
washing
job.
them.
But that was his
Yeah.
job.
Oh,
like.
yeah.
And there was no one allowed near those dogs, only himself. We used to have to, used to have to lift a corner hatch for him. You know, a corner hatch for him.
Right.
One of the small corner hatches lifted
Yes.
for him there.
Yeah.
Whoever was on watch, whoever was on the standby, had to lift that hatch for him and put down the. Well, there was a light down, and you just all you had to do was plug it in. You know, one of the what do you call it, lights, for him to look after the dog. At least 3 times
the
a day,
floods,
that
yeah.
dog had to be looked at. The dogs had to be looked at, fed and drink. You know.
You sail on quite a few of these. Was there quite a few of these ships you sailed on?
I sail on what Willie is speaking about is the old ships
This
that
is
they
the
had
old one now. The
during
old
the
Irish
war.
Iron.
And they were all bought from
They were all
either America,
mostly American. the ones I was on.
They found one adrift off the Irish coast. The Irish Navy found it.
Yeah, that's right.
And they brought it in and they claimed it.
That's right.
And also we just say like maybe in Dublin with a cargo, you might have had a Polish ship.
Yeah.
And when Poland was invaded, the ship wouldn't sail. So Irish shipping took it over. It renamed it and it sailed. But I'll say one thing, and you can't take it. Those men that sailed in those ships, and I speak of Willie too, they were heroes to go across on those ships.
When
Yeah.
I tell you about the trip now that I'm
Yeah.
telling you about the Irish Elm, I made a trip on her, my first voyage in her. Now, I was after doing 3 trips on the rows, and the weather wasn't what you call real bad, you know. She was a good little ship. But I'm going to tell you one thing. The last trip I was home, I was with Jim Carney, was boasting of our rings in it. Jim
No,
Carney,
the
you know,
Carneys, the carpenters.
they were all
chippies.
They all built yachts and
Built,
boats,
yeah,
you know.
that's right, yeah.
And the bosun said to me one day, Willie, I was on day watch coming home. I was on day work coming home with the bosun. The lads, he wanted painting done, and the lads wouldn't work. He had to put me the bosun's mate. There was a crowd of fucking hoodooers in it, you know, the animal gang lads.
I
And
know them, yeah.
there was-
They were all right.
There was
yeah.
3. Oh, jeez, I got on great with
Ah,
them.
they
though.
were all
There
right,
was
yeah.
3 of them. There was 3 of them. You see on day work, and I was on it with the bosun's mate. It was me that was giving them the brushes. It was me that was washing the brushes. It was me that was giving them the paints. It was me that was rigging up the bosun's chairs. See, we had to do the mast coming home.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had to do the funnel,
The
coming,
funnel
home,
coming home.
and
at
paint
sea.
all coming home. And
Yeah.
then you had your big green, white, and yellow flag for to repaint on the hatches. See the tarpaulin on the hatch. You know the cover of the hatches. It was canvas covers, and that had to be painted. The green, white, and yellow flag had to be done.
To identify
That's
the,
for identifying
Yes.
the over.
Yes.
Yeah. And our sides on the sides.
Either
on the
German
sides.
or
Side
British
was on
aircraft.
each
Yeah.
side was era, and some.
So, there's pictures of it there on.
That's
that.
right. And some say when she
Yeah.
was loaded down, the E was like
couldn't
an
s-
F.
That's
Fire instead of air.
Yeah, but it was real low.
Real
The
low,
weather was
Willie, yeah.
bad.
But they were.
Or she had a list on
Willie,
that side. You couldn't see it.
Willie is were heroes.
Oh, jeez, but will I
must
tell you
say.
about Jim Carney?
Yeah.
Now, the bosun said the chief mate. I forget who was made for at the time. I know he was a Wexford man.
And there's so many of them, you know.
Oh Jesus, no, I just can't think.
Yeah.
At the moment. But anyway, the bosun said the bosun come along to Chippy at dinner time. He said, "Hey Chippy," he says, "I'm keep calling me up there." He says, "There's something wrong." He says, "with the dock and bridge aft." See, now the dock and bridge was the wheel, the wheel up on the poop.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was something wrong with that it wasn't working.
Mm.
Now, when they were coming out of Cork Assembly, the second mate or whoever was there said there's something wrong with this
Steering
up aft. It's not working right. And the captain said, "Don't worry about that. We'll get that looked at." He said, "In Dublin." Now, when she come to Dublin, there was a hoodoo, and there was no time lost because she was overdue her time below in Rushbrook.
Right.
She was overdue her time, like she should have been out a week previous. But anyway, she was dated to get out for a run to the States. So they put about, I'd say there must be 500 ton of gravel, about 2,500 ton in for it, and about 2,500 ton in the after.
for ballast.
Ballast.
Right. Yeah.
There was the ballast now, so that was all right, along with the dogs, and there was a strong room in it. You know, it's only wooden, but a bit of a chain and a padlock. This is for how the whiskey.
And the bond. That was the bond room.
That was the
Willie,
bond
yeah.
room.
Yeah.
So anyway, we left, and oh Jesus, Mary and Joseph, and the weather wasn't bad. We got to the Tusker. Down to the Tusker Rock, it had ate you with a gale of wind. I think the wind was about southwest. Oh, there was a hurricane in it. And man, there she bit round the Tusker, and we opened it. We got it down around the Skellig Islands, down off there. Holy Christ almighty, she was hardly able to get up to it. And when she get up to it, she starts down like this. But we was 18 days. I'd say, now this was 18 days of seeing bad weather.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the bunkers was getting very low.
Low. And you were heading for where, Willie?
We were going to Baltimore.
To Baltimore in Maryland.
In Maryland,
USA.
yeah.
Right,
That's
Willie?
going,
Yeah.
That's where we're left
Yeah.
to go to.
Yeah. For the Chesapeake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But however, we're 16 days now at sea, and Jesus, Mary and Joseph, the lads was all getting worried. Every fella come up and say, "Geez, there's fuck all bunkers down there."
Yeah.
There's very little bunkers down there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the trimmers, there was 2 trimmers in it, and they were said, "Geez, there's no bunkers. We're sweeping, we're pushing by."
Nearly 10 with a matchbox scraping up the
That's
coal.
the truth, Austin.
Yeah.
But she had a number 4 hatch. There was 4 wooden derricks in it.
Wooden derricks.
Wooden derricks.
Right.
And there was. And Chippy said, "Oh, sorry, we run out of the bunkers. Almost out of the bunkers with nothing." And Chippy says, "It's only the one way. You have to saw the wooden derricks up to get her to port."
Yeah.
Or get her as near as possible to port.
To land. Yeah.
To land.
Right.
Now,
Willie,
where
yeah.
were we on our? Now, the weather was so bad between fog, wind, hurricanes and all as it was. Punching light ship. She burned some bunkers all right.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
light ship headwind all the time.
Mm.
But anyway, where the hell were we? We were 250 miles away north of Bermuda.
All
Away
right.
north of
You're
Bermuda.
north. Yeah.
That was on our, what do you call it? When you got a bit of sun. When the sun came out and see where he was.
When you got the sights,
When he
the
got
bearings.
a proper
Yeah.
bearing in sight.
Yeah.
We were 250 miles north of Bermuda.
Yeah.
Now, the job was to get to Bermuda. Because you get a Coast Guard cut to come 250 miles here. But geez, that'll be some tow and whore.
Yeah.
And anyway, Chippy said there's only the one way out of it. So they come to an agreement that they saw the derricks up. That's all you could do. They got the saw up, and Chippy saw them up. They were brought down, lowered down through the, what do you call it?
The fiddly.
The fiddly. And they were burned. And they got her 150 mile on them.
By Jove. On the
But they were on a different course now. She was going away. You see, there was bad weather. She was going away off course.
Yeah.
There was no steerage way on it.
No.
Steerage way wasn't there to float. And she was high out of the water because
Like a balloon, Willie.
She was like a balloon. You see, when those ships are light, they're way up in the air, and when they using the coal, they're still coming up because what coal
getting
when you're
lighter,
not coming
yeah.
across, it's getting lighter all the time.
Right,
Austin.
yeah.
But it ended up that the skipper said, "There's nothing else," he said, "I can do." Only he said, "I'll have to send out a message. I'll have to send out a message to a Coast Guard cutter." when he went to send out a message to a Coast Guard cutter, there was no area up there. The goddamn that was chucked down with a gale of wind, and do you know?
Yeah.
It was on our deck.
Yeah.
Couldn't send a message out. You could send a message out at about a 50 or 60 mile. What do you call it?
The short.
The short one.
Short one, yeah.
But they couldn't send it out long distance.
Because they had no aerial up with it, yeah.
And the only way there was some class of a trawler in a radius of 50 mile away from us, and he took the message
And
he
relay.
forwarded it on to the
Right,
Coast Guard cutter.
Yeah.
And the Coast Guard cutter come and picked us up and had to tow us into Bermuda.
And Portuguese
We had to go
Bermuda.
into. Oh yeah. Well, do you know how long the trip took?
No, Willie.
31 days.
From
It took us 23 days to Bermuda.
Bermuda, right.
And then we were a couple of days getting in bunkers.
Yes.
And went and that to
Baltimore.
Baltimore overgone.
Well, believe it, Willie.
31 days.
Yeah.
And do you know the report was in Rush? And I'll never forget Willie Kavanagh. Willie Kavanagh was in Rush. And whoever got a message or whatever way it come through, the Irish Ellen, all hands.
Gone.
Gone with all hands.
Gone with all hands, yeah. Well, she's well overdue, Willie.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well overdue.
Well, give her
yeah.
15 days, she should be there.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what you had.
Yeah.
But the weather was so bad.
Yeah.
Jesus, that was the worst trip I ever done across. And I still made 3 trips in the bugger.
Yeah.
I made 3 trips in it all. When I seen that you could make that,
Yeah.
I said, "Why Christ, I won't be afraid of you." Because she was at the coming out of, I knew she was at the being in dry dock, and she got new plates put in her.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I was worried about in the Irish Row is I didn't finish about the Irish Rows. We were doing this job up. Chippy come up Mount Dearn. We were at the taking the old canvas off and stripped her all down, and took out the what do you call it? Do you know the point for north, south, east, and west? A big copper lad took it adrift and that for the secret you'd find out what was down below. And what the goddamn did Chippy do? Now what? It's that height. What do you call it? The big thing that caps the nose, you know.
All right, yeah.
The steering gear. You see the
Yeah.
chains run through it.
Yeah.
Chippy put up a 14-pound hammer on it. And it went through the deck, and it never was seen from that day to this. It dropped down right through the fucking top deck, the next deck, and it never was got. All as we ever see was the hole down to the fucking benches, you know. And Chippy said, "I hope in Jesus it didn't get through our fucking bottom, or we'll get down with it." We'll get down with it, he says. But that's the God's truth.
Yeah.
And that was
I
on the
suppose
Irish Roads coming home.
when you go through a lot of storm and a lot of bad weather in the boat, and you come through it all right, you get great confidence in that boat.
Well, I said
and
I'd
you
never
stay
be
with it.
afraid of. But when I tell you about the last trip coming home, you know. My Christ, I'm telling you, the last trip coming home, I never forget it. All right? Though I wasn't afraid. I never was afraid now.
No.
After she went out. We were coming home, Austin. And she had, what was it? I'd be getting out what our actual tonnage was. But we were loaded. And that a half a deck cargo of timber on it. Now, there was only a half a deck cargo of timber on it.
Right. It wasn't too high.
It wasn't too high, you know.
Yeah.
But be Janie, we were 4 days out. And the wind is starting to freshen up. Now, it was far behind her. She was running all the time. And every day it was getting bigger all the time.
Very dangerous.
Jesus,
Willie.
you were looking at it and it was getting bigger.
Mm.
And the say
Very
was,
dangerous. Yeah.
she was running on this say.
Mm.
And when you're at the wheel, honest to Jesus, you're afraid every minute. She was running on the say.
Yeah.
And you think she was going to broach away like that and go on her
Yeah.
side. And then she'd swing back again. And I Jesus, it's terrible dangerous though that.
Mm.
But I'll never forget. Now, Gravy Leonard had a master's ticket. But
Yeah.
he was an alcoholic.
Right, yeah.
You know yourself.
Yeah.
He was an alcoholic.
Yeah, I knew Gravy, yeah.
And Gravy went up. It got that bad that the ship wasn't able to run no longer. She wasn't able to run, and because I'll tell you what it was doing, and you know what saved her.
She was pulling her back. Sure,
Yeah.
7 on
Do
back.
you know she had a big counter stern on her? But do you know the only thing that saved her from getting lost? There was big ventilators, Austin. There was anything to 10 feet high.
Yes.
And the timber it was the timber that saved the ventilators from getting cut off her deck.
Yeah,
With
she
the
would have
sea.
flooded then.
Would have went down.
Mm.
Oh jeez, I was on a ship. I was on one of the Manchester liners, but they were desperate. They was desperate ships, and we had to talk about your donkey's breakfast now. This was your mattress. You had to get your mattress and roll it up as tight as you could and get tight tines on it and push it down on the ventilators and put the canvas cover over it. But the ventilators are cut over day with the heavy seas.
Good God.
Clean as a whistle, just the same as those
Yeah.
hacksaw dog. That's no joking. What the sea can do, the heavy sea, boy, jeez.
Handing up to 40-foot waves, Willie, and people won't listen to believe
Gravy
you.
went up to the captain. He says, Captain, he says, you don't mind me coming up, he says, and giving you a bit of advice. He says, what's the trouble now, Bill? Well, now he said, I might as well be honest with you, Captain. He says, you're going to lose this ship and you're going to lose all hands with her. The ship isn't able to run no longer. There's only the one way out of it, he says. You can't you can't put her about. Because he says you're going to lose
Can't
the
put
ship.
her about, Willie, yeah.
He says, you know what you do with her, Captain? He's slow astern.
Aye.
Knock her out of gear, he says, slow astern. And he said, she'll ride it out forever. She had a big counter stern on her, you know.
Yeah,
you
and
need
she'd
that.
break the
And
sea,
she
yeah.
broke the sea.
Mm.
Well, that's what saved us. And that was 400 miles. We were off the, what do you call the islands that were 400 miles off the Irish coast?
The Canary, the Azores.
These hours.
The
We were
Azores,
close,
yeah.
it wasn't too far away from these hours.
Right,
The
yeah.
weather, boy, the sea was mountains.
Right, Willie, yeah.
I never forget, and I was at the wheel and I see the sea come behind her. And you'd think it was just going to
Dangerous, Willie, yeah.
go right round across.
Yeah.
And you had to stand at the wheel and just
Yeah.
keep that rudder midships. That's all you had to do because it'd be kicking around everywhere.
I'd rather see a sea coming
For
on
10
the bow.
hours, 10
Willie,
hours
yeah.
we lay like that.
Yeah.
And at moderated and we steamed home. Well, she would have been lost. Because you couldn't put her on the
You
beam.
couldn't turn, no.
And if she broached, she just
Gone.
capsized, she gone.
Yeah.
You see, if she broached at all, like got in the, yeah, she would have turned over.
Turned
I
over,
tell you what, she'd just go over and that was all it was.
Well, one of the
but that-
reasons given, I think, for a lot of the tragedy at sea is when you look at ships and their condition, is the vents, as Willie mentioned, and
Oh, the
more
ventilators.
importantly, the hatches. If a hatch breaks
the
in
hatch
or
goes
closes
away,
in,
it's
Hatch went, yeah.
that can take in
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus,
a lot
I
of
can
water.
tell you
Yeah,
a hatch could
well,
do some damage.
Well, you see, the hatches were all made up of short wooden
Yeah,
planks.
that's right, yeah.
And you know, well, you're a seaman, I
Yeah,
am.
well, they'd
and
be on that width.
that weight,
But they'd be
and,
that depth, you know.
and
They'd
then
be 2-inch stuff.
yeah, and then there'd be 3 canvases put
Three
over
canvas
that,
covers put
and
over
they
that.
were secured.
And they were all cleated.
Yeah.
There were special cleats a bit that far apart.
Yeah.
Cleats that they sat down into. And then there was a bar about 12 feet long, went along on top of that to hold it in position.
And
then
wedged.
your wedges.
Wedges, yeah.
Your wedges went in. There was special wedges made for the job to tighten them up. But I see in the Manchester liners, we used to have to, do you know what we used to have to do, Austin? Get ropes and crisscross them
All right, on the hatch,
to keep
yeah.
the water from cutting them.
Yeah. Now they
Keep the water
have,
from cutting them.
yeah, then the great thing that came out, Willie,
That
was
the-
the McGregor
Oh, yeah,
hatches.
they were great.
And
They
these were
good, yeah.
steel covers.
Steel covers.
And they were sealed.
Yeah.
And one man could open all the hatches on the
Hatches, yeah.
ship, just connect a cable to the winch, and it all rolled back
They just
like
rolled
envelopes,
like a melodeon.
like a melodeon.
Yeah.
And they had a place to sit in.
Yeah, that's right.
And
proper
when
place
you
to
wanted
live.
to close up, then
Done the
you
same.
just done the reverse,
And brought your hoop
and they
back
all
the other way
dropped
and pulled
into
them the other
place
way. They all
like a
gone.
Venetian blind.
That's the same thing.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's
Eamon,
the way they
yeah,
all are
that's how
today.
and they're all sealed. They're all
Oh,
sealed.
yeah, they're all sealed. Oh,
and
geez, yeah.
nothing will get into them
No.
as long as the seals and the hatches
not a
are
hair-
manned.
not a drop of water
yeah,
get down.
Not a gram. But things have improved a lot, Willie. You know.
Have you ever had an instance, either of you, where you were on a ship that was involved in a rescue of any kind?
No, the only thing I seen coming home there during the war in that Reliance, we picked up a 10, I think it was, on a lifeboat. She was had them in torpedoed away ahead of us, and they were in a lifeboat, which is a lifeboat, they were up to their bellies in water now, and we put the motorboat down, took
Right.
them over.
Yes.
Because you couldn't go close to them. The weather wasn't that great now.
No,
It
but
wasn't
it
bad.
matter you
But
can't
we
come
picked up-
close.
we
You have the
took them out of
swells
it,
there, Willie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big old swell.
Yeah.
We took them out of it all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And put them. I think there was 5 days with us.
Good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was.
But they were at them being torpedoed at 4 o'clock in the morning. We picked them up about 9 o'clock that day.
They were the lucky
Coming out.
ones.
And
Yeah.
it was foggy too, and blowing a gale of wind and rain, you know, like, no, I'm telling you, it was dirty.
It was tough. Yeah.
Austin, being in the engine room of a ship, you would be subject to less motion than those on the higher decks.
You probably would, but at the same time, you go skidding across the engine
yeah,
room many a
you
time
would.
because the ship rolls
When a ship
and
rolls,
she'll roll all over, you know.
will.
But they always say the deeper down you are,
The steadier you are.
steadier. But
Yeah.
not that much, you know,
No,
because
no.
the plates also were polished, and you go sliding, you know.
Yeah.
And
The ladders in those ships, you could see yourself, couldn't you?
yeah,
They
everything
were
was
polished.
bright.
You'd see
Yeah.
yourself. You could
Yeah.
take out your razor and shave yourself
Yeah.
in the handrails
Yeah.
of those ladders
Yeah.
alone. Never mind.
And every 4 hours, everything is done. Every 4 hours, the same work is done. You have the 3 shifts of 4 and 4,
Yeah.
and everything is done all over again. And she's kept spotless, you
But-
know.
Another trip, Orson. I'll tell you about Chippy Carney. Chippy had brains to burn. You see, he was a shipwright and a yacht builder or a boat
Oh,
builder.
they were very good, yeah.
Geez, they were great.
They were very good,
But
yeah.
and do you know the great big lads that goes up and down and did you know in the steam?
The Pistons, Willie. Don't be saying the lads now. The
No,
Pistons, you know. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But didn't one of them break? Didn't one of them break? Orson?
Yeah. Yeah. One of them broke with me
One of them
too.
broke.
Yeah.
And there was a piece of stuff away for it down at the forepeak, and we got our orders to get it up.
Hmm.
And the chief engineer said to Chippy, he said, "Do you think," he says, "you'd be able to do the job with it?" I said, "Chippy, he was giving me a bit of time." He said, "I'll make a job of it." He said, "We'll get her home anyway." So he said, "How long do you think would you be able to take?" "About 6 hours," he says.
Yeah.
And the weather wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
We're only on the banks in Newfoundland at this time, though. Though the weather wasn't too bad, only
Bad,
foggy
yeah.
now and that.
Yeah.
He got Chippy had her 8 hours.
And
He had it in
on.
the engine room working.
Yeah.
And by Christ, that brought her home.
Hmm.
Chippy said, "You know what it is?" He said, "I think we make it through the trip without leaving it in her. Don't
Leave it in
see
her,
how she go."
Yeah. Well, I was on.
Well, you know what she
Sorry,
done,
Willie.
Austin?
Yeah.
She broke the new one coming home this other trip.
All right. Yeah.
Now Chippy said there was some slice of a strain on it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it wasn't coming down as it should do.
Right. Yeah.
He said that it was off square.
Half square. Yeah. And,
And he
that's
says, when the wood got working, there
Yeah.
was a give in the wood,
Well,
but
yeah.
he said there was none of the steel.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what Chippy maintained.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know whether it could be right or not.
Well,
That's what he
Willie,
maintained us, and she cracked the other one too.
I
Put into her.
was on the Irish Rose.
Yeah.
And we were going anchored at the mouth of the Ribble going up to Preston.
Oh yeah, I know.
And we were just starting off going up, and next there was a bang, and we broke number 3 piston.
Christ.
And lucky enough, we swung around and dropped the anchor.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what we done, Willie?
No.
We took the piston out of her,
Yeah.
plus the valve,
Yeah.
plus the conrods,
Yeah.
and we ran it like a dog on 2 legs. Yeah, up to Preston.
Up the price.
Yes.
Christ.
And Lloyd Surveyor came aboard,
Yeah.
and we ordered a new piston
Yeah.
from the Central Marine Works.
Oh yeah.
And it wouldn't be there in time. We were on charter
I
to
know.
Shell.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of
So
course.
the surveyor says we had to go down. We were going from Preston now, like around to Stanlow and
I know,
Liverpool.
yeah, Stanlow, yeah,
So we
yeah.
went on the 2 legs, and she went as good on 2 as 3, you know.
Yeah, but
And eventually we got our we got a new piston then eventually, but we managed her. So there's always a way out,
But
you
there is a
know.
way- But Chippy was a bit too far of a
Yeah.
run with her, you see, to chance her that way.
Mm.
And Chippy said there's only the one way out. He said,
Yeah.
"Geez, you did do the job." But the next one that broke, they had a
Right.
spare for her.
Ah, right, yeah, well, yeah.
There was a spare in the storeroom or something.
Well, I was on the Irish Rose, and we were in the little motor ship, beautiful,
Oh, yeah.
9-cylinder British
Yeah.
Polar diesel engine, beautiful. And we were going, after being in a place called Umeiden outside Amsterdam,
Yeah.
and we loaded a cargo of steel for Sicily.
Oh, Sicily, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, of all places, she broke a piston going down the English Channel,
Oh, Christ.
of all places.
Yeah.
You might as well be in the middle of O'Connell Street.
I don't want to.
So anyway, we stopped, and we had to stop, of course, and we picked up the bits, and we done a little job, and we limped into Falmouth.
Yeah.
And the makers then, she was a British Polar engine,
Yeah.
and they came down and put in a new piston for us.
yeah.
So there's always a way out,
That's
you
always
know,
a way out,
always a way out,
But
yeah.
when you're in the middle of the Atlantic, though, it's a different thing. You see,
Ah, but you still and all, you get home.
Well, you
Willie.
get home.
Get
But that's
home.
what Chippy says.
Yeah.
He's saying,
Now
the
you
lads
were
are saying, in the name of Jesus, how are we going to get home now?
Now-
Don't worry, he said, I'll get her home anyway.
right.
Whatever.
There's always a way. We broke, our steering engine broke,
Yeah.
and we steered her for 3 days with the winches.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But now you told me something about
A jury.
a ship you brought home with
Yeah.
a sail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Where was that?
We sailed it for 450 miles.
with a sail.
Now, this is it. This is what I got for it. Now, there was only five Irish lads in it. There was 3 ABs and 2 deck boys.
Right,
And there's
Willie.
one of the deck boys below on the rod. And Nami cost the dart.
Dear Sir, the SS Darton, we herewith enclose our cheque in the sum of £13, being in respect ex gratia payment covering services performed when the above vessel lost her propeller and tail shaft in the North Pacific on March 1952.
It's Patrick's Day. I'll never forget as long as I live.
Yes, that's right, Willie. On Patrick's Day, the 17th of March.
That's the very day.
Yeah.
that was the-
And Willie, she was the SS Darton, and
That's
who
correct.
owned it her?
Nami cost
Nomica of London.
London
Yeah.
Greeks there.
And you got £13 for the work.
Well, when I tell you what we had to do, though.
Yeah, yeah, Willie. Now, will you tell me now? You've lost, according to this, you've lost the propeller.
Yeah,
Now, you've lost the tail shaft.
yeah.
That'd be, was it only the piece that the propeller was on? Or it wasn't what came right into
I'll
that?
tell you what happened, Austin.
You tell me now
I'll
the
tell you
story,
now,
yeah.
I'll tell you what happened.
My God, that's something, all right. That's really something, Willie,
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
that's why I kept it.
Yeah, yeah.
We left Dublin on a 6-week trip. I think I told you about being in jail. That was the same.
No, tell me all. You didn't tell me about being in jail, but you're going to tell me now. Now tell us, so you joined this ship in Dublin?
I was after making 2 trips in her to the States, Austin.
Yeah, and she was trading this way, was she?
She was trading to Dublin. She was trading for Heaton's.
Oh, Heaton's, right.
And
yeah.
I was after being on the Irish ships. And when we come to Cork, in the Irish theatre, there was a strike on.
Right, yeah,
And the strike lasted for 9 weeks. That's how long the strike lasted.
yeah.
And I said, well, fact this, I said, I'm not going to stay here waiting on a job in the Irish
And
ship.
no money, Willie.
And no money.
Yeah,
And I happened to be in Dublin. I just come home. I was only home for a couple of days, and there was no money. There was like all money going. I left it, what I had, I gave it to the woman. I said, I'm going into Dublin, so I might be up something handy. I was had to getting a few jobs or leaving in the Guinness boats off and
right,
on, you know,
yeah.
now and again.
yeah.
And I said, I'll try something. So I went to Guinness and they said, there's nothing doing. I went over to Captain Knight.
Yeah.
And he ain't going to say Captain.
He was in the Shipping
Oh,
Federation.
yeah, he was a shipping feather. He was a rush man, you see.
He was a rushman,
Oh, yeah,
wasn't
he
he?
was
Willie?
born and reared in Rush.
Oh, right,
God,
yeah.
Only he was born and reared in Rush, but he was reared in Dublin with
Right.
an aunt or an
Yeah.
uncle or
So
something.
he was the
born in Hamburg.
superintendent
He was the
of-
superintendent at the
Right,
time.
yeah,
And he knew all the Rush fellas well. And I never could go wrong with him.
right.
He used to call me Green. He never called
Yeah.
me McGee. He used to
McGee,
call
yeah.
me Green.
He knew the
Because it was
connection.
Willie Green, Jem Green, Tom
Yeah.
Green, Willie
Gusty
Green,
Green.
Gusty Green.
Green, yeah.
They were all brothers.
Yeah.
And they were all seamen. They were all firemen,
Yeah.
you know.
So he.
And he knew
yeah.
me father, Bartle McCann, Hickey Sweep, and he knew all them. They were all Rush lads, you see.
Yeah.
And he could tell you where they were and where they weren't, and what ship they were on. He knew
Right,
them all
yeah.
because he put them there.
Mm.
So he said, there's a ship, he said, running here to Dublin. She's on a 6 months articles, he said. And he said, I don't know whether he says you take the job or not. He said, I don't know, he said, many Irish fellas that's in it. I think he said there's only 2 or 3.
Mm.
I said, what nationality is this? She's a London Greek. But seemingly the crew was all right, he said.
And what flag was she flying, Willie?
Oh, she was flying the, what do you call it?
Red ensign?
Yeah.
She was registered
She
in
was
England.
registered in England,
Yeah, but
Austin,
owned
at this
by...
particular time.
That's what I was wondering,
yeah. She was flying the ensign at the time.
Yeah, right.
So that's why I joined it, though she was so he called her a London Greek.
Yeah.
But she said she's
they were
English
the
owned.
owners,
She was
yeah.
English owned, you
Yeah,
see.
that was the main thing.
So I said,
yeah.
that's okay. But there was only a couple of Irish lads in her, he said. The rest of them, he said, were
Everything.
everyone.
Yeah, like Jimmy Durante says, everybody's in
So
the
anyway, I went down. No, he told me, he said, he said, when she sign, I said, she's signing on. I think, no, not in the morning. The morning out, he said she's signing on. She'd be, only to start the discharge this morning, be 2.5 days discharge now. Frankie Ryan, I think, used to be, and they used to be digging them out that time. And,
do you remember Frankie Ryan? He used to come on
and
board.
Willie Ryan.
Yeah, they used to come on board to me
Yeah.
often, yeah.
And they had 2.5 days to be cleaning her out, and
Yeah.
then she was sailing for the States again.
Yeah.
But what she used to do, there used to be about, there was 4 hatches in her, and I think there was 700 ton, what do you call it, gravel put into it. That was her ballast, that was it, 700
Right.
ton of ballast
Well, yeah.
into a 16,000 ton ship.
Oh, right,
Just
yeah.
a matter of form to keep her sitting, to
Keep
sort
her
of
sitting,
upright,
yeah.
keep her like
So
upright.
between the bunkers and the
Yeah,
gravel,
and the gravel, yeah.
that was our ballast,
That was our
yeah.
ballast.
Yeah.
Anyway, we left, and she was fairly fast. She could do 12 knots now. There was nothing wrong with her at that
Right,
time.
yeah.
But she was an oil burner.
Oh,
she was an
oh,
oil
she was
burner.
an oil burner.
She was an
Willie,
oil
yeah.
burner.
Yeah.
But she was American built, Austin. Now she was built in the States.
Right, yeah.
She was sold from the States to the crowd in England, and she was welded ship. She was one of these Liberties.
Oh, the Liberties, yeah.
The
Liberty
Liberty
with you
ships.
now, yeah, yeah,
She
yeah.
was a Liberty ship.
All
really
welded,
speaking.
yeah.
All welded.
Yeah.
She says anyway, she's after making a couple of trips to Dublin, and she'd do 2 more trips to Dublin. And I was on the lookout this morning up on the what do you call it? Up in the mast. You used to have to keep the look up in the mast, you see, you know.
Right, yes.
Oh yeah, she was fitted up. You used to go up the stairs and you went up through the mast there, and did a little platform there, and there was a telephone and all there for you to.
Yeah.
The crow's nest.
Crow's nest.
Crow's nest,
Yeah.
really, yeah.
But I was getting relieved this morning. You see, the first 2 hours wheel, I had an hour standby, and my last was up the mast, and I was getting relieved this morning. And this fella that was relieving me coming in, hey Willie, he says, down in the front of the bridge, he says, I heard an awful lot of grinding, like as if the deck is broke across or something, and it's meeting, it's scraping. This is only outward bound.
You're right,
It
yeah.
wasn't what you call real bad. There was a bit of an hour.
Now, Willie, you're in the Atlantic now.
Yeah, we're in the Atlantic.
And where are you going? Newport News, I
We're going
suppose.
to Newport News.
For coal, right.
Coal, for the
Okay.
coal, you
And
see.
you heard this grinding, or
Yeah,
he
this
did,
grinding.
Yeah.
The man says.
Yeah.
So, geez. No, I didn't know what to do. So I said, I'm going to off watch. I said, maybe get a fucking job. I said, and you'll be on watch all night and you get nothing for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether to tell the mate or not. So I went down and I stood in the alleyway and I listened. Anyway, she went out high up in the fucking air and then she went down. And when you come back down, I could hear this thing grinding. Awesome. Right across the bridge, the full part of the bridge, the whole way across, for about 16 feet, was open like a cod's mouth.
Yeah.
And then when she come straight in herself,
She'd shine up again, yeah.
Oh, Jesus, I said, this is good. But a fella wouldn't want to put his fucking foot or his fingers or anything there. Jesus, I didn't stop and stay. I went up and I told the mate. I went up and I told the officer on the bridge.
On the bridge, yeah.
I couldn't but do it. He says, do you know anything about this ship? He says, why, what's up with her now? I says, if you take a fucking walk, that's the way I put it. So you take a fucking walk, I said, down there and have a look at the fore part of that bridge on the deck. She said, there's a cord in her mouth is open and shut. And I said, cord's in mouth, I said. He says, go away with that. Well, now I said, come on down with me, I said. He said, I think you're pulling my fucking leg, he says. Says I, I'm not pulling your leg, mister.
Yeah.
Says I, the man going up, I said, on the
Lookout.
lookout, just said to me, he said, there's something making a noise down the forepart of the bridge. He said, will you look at it going aft? And I said, I would. And when I stood in the alleyway with the light shining on it, I could see it shutting. Says I,